So this afternoon, I wanted to discuss, um, the failure of what some refer to as, democratic capitalism in the developed world, in particular in the United States. Um, And I think, where to start is um, to say I'm not here to try and convince anyone of anything, and I am not here to argue anymore. Uh, and I hope that if you're in direct opposition to what I'm about to say, you can try and listen without judgment or too much judgment. But in terms of, the topic today of democratic capitalism, I think that the term itself is a lie. That's where one must first start. That the United States either has never been truly democratic or its institutions have eroded to the point where, they have been co-opted by corporate interests or by foreign interests or by both. But it's not hard to see, the United States isn't a democracy, number one. You have to watch your terms. It was designed to be a democratic form of government called a republic, with representative government from the different regions. And it's not hard to see that, the people of this country are not being represented, by their state and by the federal government. Secondly, the other part of the term, capitalism, we have to admit to ourselves that we're not, truly capitalists, right? And that the term itself, democratic capitalism, there's two terms there. And I think people often mistake capitalism for democracy and democracy for capitalism, and they're two different things. But as far as capitalism's concerned, the corporations have taken over. And we know this. And it has been this way for a long time. So I think, at best, what we need to start saying is that we're in a corporatocracy. or an oligarchy. And those terms shouldn't be connected to, they shouldn't be partisan. And it is the partisan politics by people that don't represent us that are tearing this country apart. You know, it's Alan Watts that I first heard the analogy from. But if we think of, you know, our system as it stands, you know, it's like we have a house that is halfway built. We have all the materials. Our workers are paid for. We have all the measuring equipment. We have all the heavy equipment. We have everything that we need to build the house, to complete the house. But as we saw in, you know, the original stock market crash, and then recessions, previous to my lifetime and during my lifetime, right? All of a sudden, all the workers come to finish building the house, and the foreman says there are no more inches. So we can't build the house. So think of the stock market crash. Overnight, we still have the same amount of resources, natural resources. Still had the same amount of labor. But there wasn't enough inches, right? Wasn't enough money. And as a kid, when I learned about the stock market crash, you know, and I saw, I don't know if it was pictures or videos of them pouring milk out onto the street. You know, they were digging trenches and putting livestock in them. And burying them alive. While people were starving. While people were standing in line for food. And the question, you know, as a kid, you know, was why? Because it didn't make sense. You know, and it was beaten into my head, you know, over and over again, you know, that it just makes economic sense. You know, in my first college course I took when I was 14 years old, it was in high school. It was AP Economics. And it was one of the best courses I ever took in that, you know, the professor was amazing. How he explained the material was in an understandable way. It was the hardest course I had ever taken. And it would remain the hardest course for many, many years. And what was hard about it was not just the material, but that I absolutely disagreed with everything that the professor said. And I chalked it, down to ignorance. I was young. Didn't know any better. I didn't know what the world was like. But since I've traveled the world, I'm well read. I have a master's degree. I'm a professional. And it still doesn't make sense to me that our economics has become more of a religion than a science. And I know that there are many people that feel this way. And we have been beaten down. So we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to argue about it. If you say anything like this, you're labeled as a communist or a socialist. Neither label which fits my belief system. Because my belief system is that we can do better. That this quote-unquote democratic capitalism that we pretend to have is not the end-all and be-all of human existence. It is a 18th or 19th century idea, right? But we have 21st century technology. It is an old idea that is rooted in a very antiquated belief system. And as our belief system has shifted, we have not updated our economic system. And that has to be the next step of human development. There is enough natural resources, there is enough food, there's enough shelter, there's enough wealth in this country alone to feed the world. To take care of Maslow's hierarchy of needs for everyone on this planet. But the powers that be choose not to, so we choose not to. There's nothing that we can do. But that's not true. The first step is creating a platform to talk about these ideas without partisan politics, without yellow journalism. We need to start talking to one another again. And we need to step away from social media to do it. So if you find yourself with these beliefs, you find yourself agreeing with me or wanting to know more, find the I am first. And come join my army.